I think Australia has been looking forward to an opportunity to tap into the Chinese market with many food commodities. For years, probably 15 years, we've been talking in Australia about what it means, the growth in China, for Australia's capacity to produce food. And now with the announcement of the free trade agreement, I think it just provides a lot more certainty that the volume of trade with China is going to accelerate. And that's got to be good for Australian farmers.
And there are a lot of a specific industry kind of mentioned in the free trade agreement. For example, like the beef industry, which I think you know really well. Can you, China already imports 50% of China's import of beef, I believe, come from Australia. How can we even increase that already? Kind of a massive, hold of the Chinese market.
The beef going into China at the moment is essentially frozen beef. We've got some live cattle going in that have been supporting the creation of a dairy industry. More recently, there's been some female cattle going in to help them build up their breeding herds. But I think with the announcements that have come out over the last couple of weeks, the ability now to send live cattle over for export, and even new technologies that have been emerging over the last couple of years, which will allow us to send fresh meats into China, that's the real breakthrough for us in the beef industry.
Oh, that's the breakthrough. So the fresh beef.
Yeah, I think the Chinese have got an enormous appetite for high quality beef, and we're one of the best beef producers in the world. So if we can get our best quality in the best condition into China, then I think it's good for everybody.
So how does this China deal compare to Japan and Korea? It seems to be the China deal is a far more broad than the Korean, and the agreement was Korea and Japan. Is that a fair assessment?
Look, the population in China is obviously quite significant. More importantly is the emergence of a class of affluent Chinese who have got a great appetite and an increasing appetite for our meat, the meat that we produce here in Australia. So there's a lot of synergies there that haven't really been tapped yet, and I think that's what the excitement's all about.
And also you mentioned the dairy industry before. For a very long time, at least for the last decade, Australia seems to be lagging behind New Zealand in terms of the dairy market shares in China. Do you think this agreement would be a game changer in terms of the dairy industry in Australia?
Look, I think it will have a solid impact on the performance of the dairy industry. And again, with access to some of the capital that's available in China, coming into Australia to help that industry refine itself, if you like, I think it's pretty exciting times for the dairy industry too. I think over the next 5 to 10 years we'll see a lot more technology in that industry that we haven't seen in Australia before, and that will give us new ways of thinking about how we might best run dairy farms in Australia.
Sure, you mentioned a very interesting topic about China's investment into farmland. It's a very sensitive issue. That's the issue that received a lot of attention as a result of the free trade agreement. And what do you make of this, China's investment into farmland? I mean, this week we have seen China's largest beverage company, just made an announcement they are looking at 5 farm properties in Victoria. And what is the sentiment in country Australia? Are people not happy with this? Are they comfortable? So can you tell me a bit about how the farmers actually feel about this?
Yeah, look, it's a good topic, Peter, and I think there's a lot of sensitivity around this issue about foreigners owning Australian farmland. And yeah, it's not a new issue, it's been around for a long time. If you recall, in the 1970s, there was a massive influx of money from Japan that came into Australia looking to participate in the growth of our industry. And the benefit to Australia out of that was that the Japanese helped us create a feedlotting industry in Australia that was very basic before that era. The Chinese have certainly got some interest in investing in Australian farmland at the moment. The Chinese have got capital. I'm sure they want a return on that capital. A lot of farmers think, hey, look at all this money coming in, this is fantastic, let's grab it. The Chinese will want a genuine return on that capital, but at least they've got the capital that our industry needs to really pick itself up and take the next step forward. I think my view is that it's really not since the 70s that Australian agriculture has seen significant institutional capital invested in it to take it forward to another step. And whilst, yes, we are always concerned about who might own land, the bottom line is that people can't take land away from us. The land will always be here in Australia. And I think the industry has been underinvested in for a number of years, and perhaps we've sort of fallen behind in our productivity, our efficiency compared to some of the other big agricultural regions around the world as a result of that underinvestment. If the Chinese are interested in helping Australians reinvest back into our industry in new science, new technology, new ways of thinking about food production, then I think we need to embrace that capital, and I'm sure at the end of the day we'll all be better for it.
And also, just we have seen a large influx of China's investment into mining sector. A lot of them turn out to be a bit of a mini disaster, maybe that's an understatement. But with the investment into agriculture, there seems to be a lot of a capital and appetite. But how are they going to manage? Do you think they have learned the lessons, or are they going to look for Australian expertise, like your expertise, in terms of how to manage the farm?
Look, even Australians make poor investment decisions from time to time, so no one's going to escape that. But I think the Chinese are careful investors. They take their time to learn about industries and opportunities. And I think they've also become aware that they need to invest in Australian talent if they're going to be able to execute on their plans and their strategies effectively. So you're right, there are there are Chinese groups out in Australia right now who are talking to various management teams about different initiatives, whether they be a joint venture or some sort of other partnership that the Chinese can integrate with to achieve some of the goals that they have. But they're very serious on this sector. They're aware that the world needs to produce more food. They have a view, like many other countries around the world, that Australian land is relatively cheap. And they also have a view that the technology that's available in agriculture today right around the world has an absolute place in its application here in Australia. So the Chinese are wanting to bring all of that together, including obviously their market appetite for our beef and our grains, and see what they can do.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks,
It's a pleasure,
David, for your
Peter.
time. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure.